It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague in the isolation zone in Rainford, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Isolated, bored, but plenty of crisps.
Day 3. Still no sport on the TV. Spotted a woman on the couch. She said she was my wife. She seems nice. This is fun. Thank goodness, Neil, for the NFL, which has saved us from no sport to talk absolute insanity in relation to free agency.
In my defence, and I don't like to defend myself usually, I don't watch sport on a Saturday during the winter. So Saturday, while it was soul destroying for people like yourself, which, you know, judging by your wife's Facebook feed, was a joy for her. And I don't watch sports. I don't watch Soccer Saturday or any of this. So I got through it fine. It's when I start realising, oh my God, we're going to go into the cricket season and this is going to be the same. Then I'm going to start to struggle. And what the hell is happening in your room? I've no idea, because you look like you're in a most haunted clip.
My wife's probably just switched the light off. Don't worry, carry on. Yes, it wasn't great, Neil. But literally, we've been saved by the NFL. But we're given all the moves and how insane it is. We're not obviously going to do that ourselves, because that would be ridiculous. We're going to get an expert. An expert, probably one of the happiest men on the planet right now, Mr. Charles Dagnall, who's going to talk all about his Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady. We've pre-recorded this. He doesn't breathe for like 15 minutes. It's amazing.
He's so happy. You know the phrase, you know, spoiler alert, but you know, he's like a kid on Christmas Day. No kid on Christmas Day has ever been this happy or excited.
No, so we're going to get straight on with it now. Let's get Charles on the line and talk free agency. So you can't talk about 2020 free agency without talking to one man, probably the happiest man outside of Tampa Bay who supports the Buccaneers. It's Mr. Charles Dagnall. Charles, first things first, let's just get on with it straight away. Give me your Tom Brady thoughts.
Mains Duts, good to see you. Good to hear from you as well. And yeah, you're probably right. The house that I live in is a small one, but it can barely contain the combustible nature of when I actually heard this news. And look, you guys know me. We follow each other all on Twitter and social media, and we chat about this. And I have maintained that the 5 years of Jameis Winston, there were positives, there were a huge amount of negatives, but I genuinely thought that he was not the man to take Tampa Bay forward. He may well fit better for another team. He's still very, very young. But I, for now a couple of years, of just thought we've got to move on from this guy. Now, moving on from him to then the greatest of all time, old Six Rings coming down to Raymond James Stadium, is a slight shift in what I thought. There were numerous things, before we start, there were numerous things that I thought could happen. I actually thought Rivers might have been a slightly better fit down in Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians loves his veteran quarterbacks. I also wouldn't have minded had various trades occurred and Derek Carr coming over from Las Vegas now. I would have thought that would have been a pretty reasonable upgrade for someone like Tampa Bay. To get Tom Brady, I think, is an astonishing, and I mean, it's shaken the foundations of the NFL, hasn't it? Let's be honest. With a guy who's won 6 Super Bowls up in New England, he's been, you know, arguably most years in the mix for getting to the big dance anyway, or getting there and losing. When you have an association of a player of that nature with one particular club, right the way back from 1999, it is always going to be relatively earth-shattering, especially within the NFL. For him to come down to Tampa Bay is, I think, a really good move on a variety of fronts. Do I think he's going to lead us to a Super Bowl? No, I don't. I don't think we have I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think we have the secondary to do it. I'd love to see Tampa Bay sign someone in the secondary. My God, we are so drastic in that position. And also, we need a running game. We need a slightly stiffer offensive line. We need a right tackle. That said, what does he bring? He brings so much experience. He brings a winning mentality, and that cannot be underlined enough. It's the change of mentality in a locker room. This guy comes for, let's say, 2 years, okay? He changes the mindset of the players around him. These guys don't know how to win. They don't know what it takes. It will be a shock to a lot of people's systems within that locker room of Raymond James Stadium. And what he also does when Brady comes, or will come down there, is everybody else has this, maybe it's even a kind of mythology about the man, but he will bring that sense of aura. You will step your own game up if you are on that roster. You will step your own game up to keep up with him. He's 40-odd years old. That's fine, but you got to keep up with him. And that is what a lot of, and you'll get found out if you don't. And you'll also probably get told. And who in that roster can go up against someone who's got the CV and the listening of rings that Tom Brady has? No one's going to do it. So there's a lot of talk about, does he fit in the system? Has he still got the arm strength for what the Buccaneers have? I think there's a bigger picture here. The Bucs can then, now, with Brady at the helm, should they want to draft, because they're going to have to over the course of, but if they want to draft a guy, they don't have to draft him in the first round. They can wait a couple of rounds and get someone who's not under the sort of top echelon of quarterbacks in the draft, the Tuas, the Herberts, the Loves, all of those sort of people. I think they can, Joe Burrow, I think they can wait and find a guy that suits them, and they sit behind on the sideline and learn from the best of all time for a couple of years. That's not a bad thing either. So off the field, he brings so much to a side and to a team that hasn't tasted success since 2001. So that's point number one. You give a 2-year contract to Jameis Winston, you get another 2 years of what you've just had. Okay, so the worst thing that happens is the Bucs end up with a very similar kind of record. Let's say they end up with a 7-9, an 8-8, or whatever it is. But what you're gleaning is a man who's got 2 decades worth of experience in that locker room, and and changing that mindset and that mentality. And I think that is worth more than actually any play. But of course, his play is going to get taken into account. Another thing about great players is they love proving people wrong. He's not got it anymore. He's not got the arm strength to go down the field. You just wait. I've just got a funny feeling that he's still got plenty of arm strength. Plus, he has a receiving core, which has got 2 outstanding tight ends and 2 outstanding wide receivers. Do I think the Bucs need to pick up a slot guy? Possibly. Yeah, I think that would really round them off. Brady's used to having a sort of running back by committee in general. He's not got a huge running game to play with at the Bucs. Again, I'd like to see that change, but he's used to going a lot of empty set formations, 5 wides, and the Bucs can do that, and they can play into his own strengths. The other thing is, I'm sorry I'm going on here, but I've been thinking about this a lot, as you can possibly understand. We're all sort of at home, held hostage, so your mind wanders as to what it can mean for the Buccaneers. Simple things. The guy can read a defense. He can read a defense pre-snap, rather than just sort of getting through on a bit of a wing and a prayer and slugging it downfield and hoping Mike Evans catches it. This guy can actually preempt what's going on a lot more than Jameis can. So there are so many aspects to. Will it be weird seeing him in a Bucs uniform? Of course it will. We've got used to seeing him for 20 years in Patriots, in the Patriots colours. But it's exciting. It makes them relevant again as well. When talking about TV schedules, you're telling me Tampa Bay are not going to be on prime time 6-7 times next year because Brady's there.
They
Of
will be
course they are. season tickets are going to go through the roof because Brady's there. It's. I think there is much more at stake than just saying, "Oh, he's 40? Is he over the hill?" Matters not about the scheme. Bruce Arians is a very, very Tom Moore as well down there. They know him. They know what will work for him, and I still think they'll still be able to sling it decent enough, especially when he sees Evans in one-on-one coverage, to go and let his receiver go and get it. He's a very, very smart cookie, and I think this it really will galvanize the franchise. I mean, if they get to the playoffs, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. That's all what we want. But it makes us interesting again. And, okay, fair enough. When Jameis was under center, it was always interesting. but astonishingly frustrating as well. So you've got to hope that Tom Brady is going to throw it to the other team a little bit less than Jameis did.
I think it's one thing that you say that, he's going to come in. He's only going to be there for 2 years. But the culture that he will bring in when the next quarterback comes in after him, the culture will already be there that they will hold that quarterback accountable. He's not going to come into, a crap offensive line, receivers who don't know where they're going. These players are going to know this is what Tom expected. This is what we expect of you. So if it is someone, if it's a Jalen Hurts or a Jake Fromm or someone a bit later, they'll come in and say, no, you learn the system. And when it's your turn, you'll know what to do. It's not going to be okay, Tom's gone, just scatter. It's, the culture thing is so important.
It totally is. You look at someone like Jimmy G. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo was on the bench for a long time, just watching this dude operate for a long, long time. And he's gone over. He's got his own side now in San Francisco, and he's having success with them. And Jacoby Brissett spent a little bit of time behind. No, I'm not saying he's a franchise guy, but you're going to improve. I can't stress how important that keeping up with him is. The offensive line. Are you telling me that they're not going to play another 10, 20% better because they're protecting the greatest of all time? Are you telling me that rather than protecting someone who might just throw it randomly to another player on the opposition? They won't outwardly. They'll say they'd protect him just as much. Sorry, it don't work like that. Does not work. It when you've got, if you're and I'll use a cricket terminology. I'm sorry to do this, but if you've got a batsman at one end, you're bowling at Viv Richards, or you're bowling at some county number 11. You're switched on a little bit more when Viv's at the other end, and it's that kind of mentality. When you've got to raise your game, you've got to raise your game, because do you want to be the right tackle, the left tackle, the offensive guard who gets Tom Brady sacked 50 times a year? Nah, you don't want to be that guy. Is there an opportunity? People have said this. It's an opportunity for him to get a pension payment, and these guys are great for a reason. They don't let their standards slip. They maintain. Even when Peyton was, playing at a pretty low level, and he still managed to win a Super Bowl. Now, granted, that was through a lot of defensive work, but the guy still has to lead his team. He still has to go down and score points, albeit fewer of them, and rely less on his arm strength. And, by the time he'd come to the back end of his career, he was throwing balls that were practically sideways. The amount of wobble that there wasn't, no tight spirals from Peyton there, but could he read that defense? Could he know almost ahead of time what their defense was going to do and adjust the play accordingly? Yeah, and Tom Brady's another version of that. You got to keep up with him. And I think that Buccaneers franchise now will definitely have a slightly steelier edge. And if he turns around, whether you're offensive or defensive player, he turns around and tells you something, you've got no comeback to someone like that. So I think that's what it does to a side.
Dalton, if we move over to the other side of this move into the Patriots, first of all, welcome to the rest of the league. New England, we've missed you. welcome back. I guess Dutton is. I think it was in a New York Times article where Tom Brady's dad said that it would end badly. This was in 2015. It hasn't ended tremendously badly, but it hasn't ended well. Are we just to assume that Bill had a number and refused to go over said number, and therefore let the best quarterback ever just walk out the door?
Bill Belichick has shown throughout the whole time he's been with the Patriots. The Patriot way. Part of the Patriot way is accepting that when your time comes, in the eyes of Bill Belichick, you will be gone. Lawyer Malloy, now we've paid you what we want to pay you. You want more? Off. Randy Moss, we've paid you what you want to pay you. I want more? Off. It's going to happen. Tom Brady, everyone thought, it's going to be an exception because it's Tom Brady. No, Bill Belichick does not make exceptions. They're saying, Robert Kraft came out and said, if Tommy wanted to stay, he'd still be here. I don't believe you, Robert. Terribly sorry. I think if Bill Belichick wanted him to stay and Tom Brady wanted to stay, he'd still be a Patriot. But Bill Belichick was like, okay, we've paid you below market and under the table for 10 years. It was, if it was, I think it's, I want to be paid, or if you're not going to pay me, I want you to bring in some, another wide receiver, another tight end. And then when he doesn't pay Brady, and you see DeAndre Hopkins going for pennies on the dollar, you see Stephon Diggs getting traded away for, compared to what Nuke Hopkins went for, a king's ransom, and the Patriots are sitting there still going, Tom, have you made your mind up yet? And I think it's just a case of, it's probably, it probably is time to move on.
And if you're going to move on, I guess, and I think Charles kind of briefly talked about it. We talk about arm strength and things going well. Like, has anyone been to the northeast of America? I have. Has anyone been to the Florida region? I have. Just breaking news for people in late year weather reports. It's hotter in Tampa than it is in New England. Probably easier to warm up. Probably a bit looser. So there's no surprise that the age range in Florida is about 94, as everybody wants to stay a bit warmer. They don't go for the alligators. They go to stay warm.
Do you not know that Florida has magical rejuvenating properties within its air and within absolutely, and of course the tax laws have helped as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, the fact you don't pay any income tax is probably a benefit, right? $30 million. For people who don't know, people who are rubbish at maths, it sounds like Tom Brady's going to get $30 million. When you take off his income tax, that means Tom Brady will get $30 million because they don't pay income tax in Florida.
I'm with Dutz here. I think Belichick he is many things, but shrewd is one of the things that he is. And you know what? If he sees a ride coming to the end and an opportunity in this sense, it is not. No one's come out of it, as you said, Mains. No one's come out looking bad. The Patriots, it's all like, yeah, we've had 20 years and that's great. Good luck to you, Tom. But no one's spewing about Belichick and allowing him to go, or Robert Kraft. I don't think, I might have read the room wrong, but I don't think Patriots fans are massively, they're not, the knives are not out for Bill Belichick because he's let Tom Brady go. I don't think so. I think they're probably, hey, we've had 2 decades at the top. We're going to have to get used to the fact that, and they've probably done this for the last 4 or 5 years, is Tom going to be still around? So in their mind, they're probably ready to move on. And if they have one half of that double act in Belichick still there, they probably think they've got the better half in that he's got the ability to see a new person into that role. So I don't think there's that many losers in this, but big winners in Tampa Bay.
I did enjoy searching on Twitter just briefly, just for the phrases says system quarterback yesterday, just to see what I could see. And there were a few nice responses from, shall I say, Patriots fans a little lower down the evolutionary scale.
A few Sullies. A few Sullies had had a few too many Sam Adamses early in the day when they when they got on the Twitter machine, Neil. Yeah.
I tell you what, if he's a system quarterback, do you know what? I can live with that. That's
exactly right.
Absolutely fine to me.
Find me that system stat. Let's stay in the NFC South, Charles, and talk about the quarterback carousel. Right? We now have no Cam Newton.
Let me see how excited I'm going to be about the NFC East next year. Oh, Dak's back. Oh, brilliant. And and the Eagles have you've signed a nose tackle. Well done. That's brilliant. I mean, the NFC East is going to be staggeringly exciting next year. Whereas the NFC South,
yes.
Breeze, Brady. I'm sorry, I might have just stepped on your toes here, Mains. And my apologies, but I'm bursting. Breeze, Brady, Teddy Bridgewater, who's gone to the Carolina Panthers, and of course Matt Ryan, who I love. I really do love Matt Ryan. Even though I hate Atlanta, I do love Matt Ryan. I think he's a fabulous quarterback. What about those four in that one division?
It's a crazy situation. I think if we start with the Bridgewater for Newton change, if we step away from the fact Cam Newton now tweets like the dude in Zodiac and leave that to one side. I assume they've decided, or the new ownership and new head coach have decided that they're concerned by his health history and think this is a good time to cut bait, and they would rather have someone much more manageable and malleable like Teddy Bridgewater, even if they're going to pay him $60 million.
From my perspective, don't know what you think, Dutz, but I think it's a really good move from Carolina. When Bridgewater came in relief of Drew Brees last year at New Orleans, of course, he's got a brilliant head coach in Sean Payton to guide him through that. But, he was outstanding at Minnesota before the injury. Of course, it took him a while to get over that, and then went over to New Orleans and rode the bench again, learning probably so much behind Drew Brees. And when he came in, he was outstanding. You know what? If Cam can't be Cam, and they are worried about his health issues, look, I'm no Cam Newton fan. When you look at what he was able to do a couple of years back, his mobility, his strength, and that Superman nature of his play, that's all well and good. When he has to sit back in the pocket and pass, he is bang average. The threat of Cam running, and then a dual threat if you had a fully fit Cam of himself, Christian McCaffrey, then you've got a lot of more people in the box trying to stop that option. It opens up your receivers in more one-on-one situations, and not be funny, you don't have to be as accurate. And when Cam drops back and drops back to pass, then he ain't as good as thrower as Teddy Bridgewater, in my opinion. I think it's a real good upgrade for Carolina. You've got all the yards you want on the ground with Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be tough enough to stop. I can only think of one team that stopped them really last year. It just so happened to be Tampa Bay. We couldn't stop the pass, but we're very good against the run. But I think Bridgewater to Carolina is a little bit more solid. There's less of the theatrics as well, and less of the headlines. Whenever Cam said anything, it was front page headlines in Charlotte, I think. And all of his get up and his dress sense and all of these sort of things, which were distractions away from the fact they weren't winning games either. And he wasn't the same guy. If you're not going to be fit for 17 games a season, then I think this is a very shrewd move. I think you've got a lot of time left in Teddy Bridgewater as well, and an opportunity to make that team his own. Under new head coach as well. So, I from my perspective, I think Carolina have done the right thing and move on. And they've got themselves a very solid. I still don't think we've seen the best of Teddy Bridgewater whatsoever. We've not seen, a couple of seasons back to back. I'm excited about what he can bring to them. I really am.
I think as well, you look at the pieces they've got around him now in the offense, it's perfectly suited for Bridgewater, who's not got a big arm. He's not going to, take 7 steps and bomb it downfield. You've got DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, the tight end Ian Thomas. These are all players, get the ball in the hands and let them rack up the yak. And then, if they can, Bridgewater last year, I think when he did pass deep, he was quite accurate. He just didn't do it very often. Shock alert to what Drew Brees has done for years. So there's no danger here. If they just have someone like in the draft, add someone with some speed just to keep the defense honest, with those pieces around Bridgewater, he's perfect for them. Because, he can just, little dump off 5-10 yards to line of scrimmage and let them go and do it. He's perfect for the players that are around them.
I'm with you. I think they need a speed guy. I do, and I think that will, you've lost Greg Olsen, who is, okay, granted he's towards the autumn of his career, but man, he's money. He's absolute money, and what an outlet he is. You throw it in his general direction, he's coming down with it. So I think, I look at some of the free agents who are still available. I genuinely don't know what Carolina have got regarding cap room. I would like them to see, I'm talking completely as a neutral, but I would like to see them add another receiver. I think that would make them more rounded, considering what you've got in the division. In the division, you have got now, hence why my team, the Bucks, they need some secondary. They've just got to have it, because you've got some very, very talented quarterbacks with very strong arms and very accurate ones in Teddy Bridgewater as well. They'll pick you off just as easy. You might have a great front four, with Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul re-signing. And this is all great news for Tampa Bay's front four. Got decent linebacking core despite losing Nessie. But in that respect, I would like to see Carolina just add one more. I'd be intrigued to see if Robbie Anderson's sort of flirted their way, unless he's signed by the time we're already on this.
No, not yet, Charles. I'm literally, yeah. I've got the Twitter open just in case, but not yet. But yeah, it makes sense. I guess, the Saints re-up on Breeze again. I guess not surprising. They would do that. Concerns were raised, especially towards the end of the year. I jokingly said to Neil before we started the show, is Drew Brees the worst player now on the Saints roster? Obviously a joke. However, I do want to quickly talk about someone who is now on the Saints roster, Neil, and that's one of your favourites from the Philadelphia Eagles, Malcolm Jenkins. And what do you think? What kind of leadership is he going to bring alongside Lattimore and the rest in the secondary for the Saints?
Well, it goes back to what Charles was saying. Malcolm Jenkins is, some people, they just radiate leadership. And that seems to be what Malcolm Jenkins has done. Now, if we go back to when the Eagles signed him initially, I was a bit, he wasn't very good for the Saints. He was converted corner. Oh, I wanted Jairus Byrd. Oh, this sucks. Yeah, I was wrong. But the thing is, again, though, Howie Roseman spoke at the Combine and he said his biggest weakness was that he got too attached to players. Now, what you've seen from the Eagles in the last few weeks is they've said, both Roseman and Doug said, no, we'd love Jason Peters to come back. 2 days later, yeah, Jason's going to test the open market. Malcolm Jenkins said after the season, I'm not coming back on my current deal. So what happens? They re-sign Jalen Mills and say, we're probably going to move him to safety. They re-up with Rodney McLeod, and they say to Malcolm, you don't want to come back on your present deal. We've tried to trade you. We can't get anything for you. Off you pop. No hard feelings. Thanks for everything. And Jenkins has come out and said, no, that's great. He is going to be an absolute force of nature in that defense because he's Malcolm Jenkins. He's coming back. The last person who played for the Eagles who went back to the Saints was Patrick Robinson. Hasn't done an awful lot, but let's not compare Patrick Robinson with Malcolm Jenkins. It's very sad. I'd be hard-pressed to say that the Eagles are a better team now than they were when the season finished, unless they decide that nose tackle they've signed that they didn't really need can play cornerback, which I don't think he can. There is the argument that maybe the Eagles just know their secondary is so bad they just can't be arsed doing anything about it. So it's unfixable. So we'll just make sure. And to an extent, I understand the Hargreaves signs to an extent, because what do the three other teams in the NFC East want to do? They want to run the ball, so you clog them up and say, you can't run on us, terribly sorry, you're going to have to pass. Oh, you have passed. Okay, it's 7-0. Thanks for that. But the plan worked. You can't run on us. So I'll be, I'm very, very sad to see Jenkins go. But the Saints are not going away. So if he was to win another Super Bowl, it would be very sad that it wasn't with the Eagles, but I would like to see him do it.
I don't know. Again, what you guys think. I think there was always the saying that if you want to build a franchise, you build it through the draft. And that's absolutely right. Couldn't agree with that more. And some teams go absolutely crazy in free agency, and owners and general managers that don't know what they're doing. I can't think of any teams at the top of my head that usually go into free agency and make really rash signings, especially from the NFC East, who are based in the capital.
Me neither.
And loath as I am to pour, hot water on that mains, I'm sorry to mention it, but there are certain players. There are certain players who bring more. It's not just a rash signing, and Malcolm Jenkins is one. I totally agree. Malcolm Jenkins is you bring in people to lead their teams and for them to galvanize what's already there and to actually improve. If you get 10 or 15% more out of that Saints defense, they're going to be putting some serious numbers up there. And a player such as that, and these guys are not stupid. It's not about adding players. It's not about adding talent. It's adding the right player. And all of these, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're trouble, or if you're not great locker room guy, and all of these you have to take into consideration. I think that is a seriously good signing, Malcolm Jenkins for the New Orleans Saints. And again, not only does it bolster their secondary, but it also organises them slightly better. And that cannot be underestimated. A person who can, in the safety position, organise a secondary and have that sort of leadership of people knowing what the hell they're doing. How many times have we seen secondary just run amok from actually people being out of position, not knowing who they're supposed to be covering, or not covering the specific area when they're playing zone? And Malcolm Jenkins will make sure you are absolutely doing your job.
Yeah, the number of times you see the safety, after the big play, just put the hand up, sorry boys, it's like, that's not going to fly with Jenk.
Nope.
Hey, before we move on, I just want to quickly highlight. I think Charles has already highlighted it. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Jim Nance, Tony Romo, Al Michaels, and Chris Collinsworth. Enjoy Tampa, New Orleans, and Carolina this year. You will probably be there a lot. Let's move to the other South, the AFC South. Two teams making big moves, some more logical than others. Let's start in Houston. We don't usually swear on this podcast, so Neil, I'll go to you first on this one. What the F are the Houston Texans doing in relation to DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, what the Houston Texans are doing is they are becoming the perfect poster child for why mamas don't let your babies grow up to be coaches and GMs. Because clearly Bill O'Brien is an egomaniac. He doesn't like being challenged. And if the report that Michael Irvin is coming out with is true, oh my God, fire this man immediately from both his roles.
Have you seen that report, Charles?
I've not seen the report.
Okay, so let me Michael. So let's get the lawyer things out the way. Michael Irvin was on Get Up, the ESPN show with Mike Greenberg, and he stated that he'd spoken to DeAndre Hopkins and that Hopkins had said he'd gone into a meeting with Bill O'Brien earlier in the season where Bill O'Brien had quoted that he was concerned that he was becoming a bit too much like Aaron Hernandez. Yes, that Aaron Hernandez, the guy who used to play for the Patriots. What? Yeah. He then also highlighted that he didn't like the fact that DeAndre Hopkins has multiple children with multiple women, and it seems that Poscusa. They seem to all get on okay, so they can be in each other's company. And Bill O'Brien suggested that he didn't like the fact that he had multiple women with him at multiple times. So Hopkins had said this to Irvin, allegedly, and Irvin has then said this on ESPN. The internet went flipping berserk.
How have I missed this?
And like, there's a few people like, Michael Irvin's a bit of a nut job, which he is. Like, I think that's fair. He's not exactly he's not a loose cannon at times.
He's a considered journalist.
Yeah, exactly, right. He's a talking head at best, right?
He's a two-source guy.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem with him being there's an issue of him not needing to be a two-source guy when the guy he spoke to was DeAndre Hopkins. And as I said to someone who raised to me, well, it's Irvin, should I believe him? Well, DeAndre Hopkins has been on Twitter loads and in the past has said, that's not true, this isn't true. And this came out, that show is 11 o'clock UK time till 2 p.m. UK time. It's now 10 to 10 UK time. And he hasn't come out and said that's a lie.
Well, I mean, first, I'm completely taken aback with what you've just said there. I mean, it's look, the trade itself, I mean, when it happened, you are kidding. It's DeAndre Hopkins. I don't care how many kids he's got, by how many women he's got, or whatever. How does he conduct himself on the field of play? How does he conduct himself in the locker room? And so, this guy is elite. He is absolutely elite. And I've never heard, and you might please correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard an off-field peep about DeAndre Hopkins.
And that's
not once.
And that's what Hopkins said to Irvin, that he highlighted Aaron Hernandez, and he was like, I have never done anything wrong in my entire career, so why is he even bringing that up?
All I know about DeAndre Hopkins and what I've seen and read and watched is that this is a proper teammate. He works his backside off. He is one of the, if not the, best receivers in the league. And I talked about Greg Olsen being money. DeAndre Hopkins is money. I mean, he really is. Now, I've got it in front of me here. He's gone him and a 4th-round pick for David Johnson and a 2020 second-round pick and a 2021 4th-rounder. Are you absolutely kidding me?
So the Texans have suggested they did that because he wouldn't sign a new deal. Cool. Okay, that's fine. But then that doesn't mean you give him away, because basically you've gave him away.
No, I mean Arizona. I mean, my God, is it Steve Keim who's the GM there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, his stock has just gone flying through the roof. He's coaxed Larry Fitzgerald into another season. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. He's got Kenyon Drake, who had an amazing second half of the season under, in the new offense, Cliff Kingsbury's offense. You've got a real young star of a quarterback who's got a year's learning under his belt. They're going to be great to watch this year. I mean, they really are going to be fabulous to watch. But when you compare it with the Stephon Diggs trade, I believe that's. Now, is he a bit of trouble? Yes, he is. But is he elite? Yes, he is. And do Buffalo need that particular piece? Yeah, I really think they do. How people then are saying, well, Buffalo have overpaid for it. No, I don't think they have. I actually think they've probably paid market value. It's that Houston have let DeAndre Hopkins go for so low that it makes Buffalo look as though they've overpaid for Stephon Diggs. I don't think they have. I think that's probably around about fair for what they've got for Diggs. But I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, and I think that the funny thing is all it does is highlight how bad the Texans deal is. Because if someone's willing, I know the guys on the Around AFL usually bring up that there should be like this, WhatsApp group of GMs who are like, I'm about to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. Who wants him? I've been offered this, quote unquote, and like you look and you think. Like Dave
Gettleman has left this group.
Yeah, exactly.
He can't work WhatsApp.
I've deleted it again. Damn. Billy Bean, sorry, and the guys in Buffalo and in Minnesota have come through a deal and first round, whatever. I'm with you. Do you know? It seems like you're getting guaranteed production for him. So they've decided that they'd rather know what they have in that than try and pick someone in the first round. Although from what I understand, there's a lot of really good wide receivers in the draft this year, but they've decided to go with something that they know. That's fine. But the Hopkins thing, did you not ring anybody else? Like, how did you get to a situation where it was Steve Keim and he said, you can have David Johnson? And he'd be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Looking at his 2014 stats, I assume. And you're just like, it's just crazy. And this is why, with the exception of probably Bill Belichick, you have a power structure where one person isn't in total charge of everything. Because then, as Neil quite rightly points out, if a coach gets into a bit of a dispute with a player because he doesn't like him, because they get out in each other's way, thinks he's in control, a GM will say, that's a great story, he's our best player, so get over it. Whereas he's got no one in that control, so he said, let's get rid of him.
It was many moons ago, there was an episode of Yes Minister, where it was Jim Hacker said, so Humphrey, I have made a decision, I shall appoint someone. And Humphrey said, and how long did you consider this? He went, no, I just came up with it. He went, okay. And how long did you spend weighing up the pros and cons of this decision? I didn't. I want to be decisive. Okay. No. I mean, we play dynasty leagues, in fantasy football. If you tried to say to an owner, I've got David Johnson, you have DeAndre Hopkins, the conversation ends there. It just, I'd quite like DeAndre Hopkins. Would you like David Johnson? Don't text me again. I'm not listening to your bullshit trade offers. It's as you say, if you tried this on Madden would say, no, what are you doing?
You wouldn't be allowed on, and never mind a dynasty draft, you wouldn't be allowed it in any fantasy draft. It'd just be vetoed automatically.
This is the, you look at, in the last few years, the Houston Texans have got rid of Dwayne Brown, not an elite Hall of Fame level left tackle, but certainly serviceable. They traded away Jadeveon Clowney and they traded away DeAndre Hopkins and didn't get a first round pick for any of them.
I find it astonishing, and you've got a franchise, and look, David Johnson, as you say, what is it? Probably 3-4 years ago, when he was, he was marvelous. He was absolutely magical every time he touched the ball. That's not the same David Johnson now. They saw the production in Kenyon Drake last year in the second half, and if I'm Steve Keim, I am looking to offload David Johnson, because I've got a guy who's had a really good production for me over the second half of last season. I can draft a running back in the 6th round and get some decent production out of him, because elite running backs are not going for what they used to be, or not being drafted as high as they used to be, unless you are a Melvin Gordon or a Todd Gurley or an Ezekiel Elliott. They're not going for that. So you can still get very good production from the guys that you draft in the later rounds. Now, if I'm Steve Keim, I'm probably thinking, along with a variety of salary cap issues and how they're going to fit it all in and create the roster for the forthcoming season, I'm probably looking to get rid of David Johnson. Let's be honest. I'm trying to offload him, or at least one of the two, whichever it may be, if they could guarantee that he was going to be fit. to get, the draft picks are in my opinion, they're relatively meaningless. A fourth rounder, okay, that's fine. That's all well and good. But really, it's the player exchange. And you're looking to get rid of a bloke and get one of the elite players in the league for him. And you've actually achieved that. My God. I mean, Houston, I agree.
Houston, they have a problem.
They do have a massive problem. They really do. I was astounded when I saw what the price was.
It just made me think of that Seth Johnson story, that when he was signing for Leeds, his agent said, I'll try and get you 15 grand, and Leeds' first offer was 30. This was,
story.
It's the idea of, hi Steve, Bill O'Brien here. We'd quite like to take David Johnson off your hand, kind of thinking, okay, don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. This is too good to be true. Okay, Bill, you can have him for a fourth round pick and DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. Seriously, okay.
I wonder how cool Steve Keim was when having that conversation. I wonder how cool he was. Just secretly sort of fist bumping, but outwardly was just going, well, we'll have to consider that. That's an interesting sign of trade. And should we? Yeah, actually, let's call it a deal. All right. Okay.
Quickly.
Meanwhile, balloons are being blown up and party poppers let off in the building. I can't believe it.
You drive a hard bargain, Bill. But...
You've got me this time, Bill. You've got me this time, but I'm sure I'll get you the next time.
You owe me one. You owe me one, Bill. All right.
Neil, if we go back to the Diggs deal? Do we see the Diggs deal as not linked to the Tom Brady decision, but a acknowledgement that the Buffalo Bills really believe that they are elite playmakers away from being the best team in that division?
Well, yeah, they have to, because, in terms of, we saw what they can do on offense in the first half against the Texans. It was just that, Josh Allen had a big bag of sherbet at half time and just, absolutely went off his head. Giving them Stephon Diggs is obviously, it's an upgrade on what they have. They don't have to wheel out Duke Williams or, Isaiah McKenzie. They've got Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, John Brown. That's fine. That's workable. They've got Dawson Knox, young tight end. The problem is, of course, is that if Stephon Diggs didn't really like being the first option in a passing attack in a ground-based team that was quarterbacked by steady Eddie Kirk Cousins, do we really think, Josh Allen, was funny, the man who perpetually plays with his hair on fire? It's going to be, a long, I don't think it'll be long before Diggs goes back with his cryptic tweet crap, his subtle subtweeting of his quarterback. But ultimately, if they win, that might shut him up. It didn't with the Vikings, but it might do here.
But it didn't shut him up because they didn't throw to him all the time. So wide receivers demand one thing, and it's not winning; it's the ball. So if he is the only show in town, then there's a possibility that he may be quieter. I think for me, you look at Buffalo and you think, there's a chance they were the best team in the division. I did a couple of previews for touchdown.co.uk, and Bills was one of them. And good cap position, strong roster. Add Diggs, they were probably going to look wide receiver anyway. So, it makes sense. I think it's a great move, and not that I'm necessarily staring at betting markets, but believe you me, that the numbers differed between when Tom Brady was in the division and when Tom Brady wasn't, especially when Diggs was added for the Bills. Final team I want to look at is back in the South, is the Indianapolis Colts. A lot more in the Bills camp of all-in moves. Again, probably seeing that somehow the best team in their division is the Houston Texans. They've got DeVonta Buckner. They've got Phil Rivers. Do we see them as now the best team in the AFC South, Charles?
I think it's difficult to go, and I also think it'll go against that. They've got, and again, we'll talk about aged quarterbacks, but goodness, he's got the best protection, I would argue, in the league. I think that offensive line, they've re-signed Anthony Costanzo for another couple of years. That's a big call. Protecting Philip Rivers is something. Yes, does he have that quick pop on the ball anymore? No. But I think that we talked about earlier, building your franchise through the draft. That is exactly what the Indianapolis Colts have done. Frank Reich is a very, very astute head coach. I think they will work the system around him, and I think that they are probably now the side to be. I think they would have probably won 2 or 3 more games had they had a little bit, and I wouldn't say leadership. I thought Jacoby Brissett had some very good moments last year, and especially given the situation he was put in with the Andrew Luck retirement, he just cracked on with the job, and I thought he did pretty well. Now, is he going to rally you a huge amount of times, or is he going to get the job done? He's going to be in the latter camp all over. And one of the things that did help him was the fact that he stayed upright the majority of the time. So that did give him that little bit more time, to find his guys and for the field to open up a little bit. I think adding DeForest Buckner is a huge deal for them. Some real grunt up inside that defensive line. I think, he's been paid well, but he deserves that. I think he's again such a high caliber. So I would argue, with I think Nick Foles is going to or has just gone to Chicago. And so Jacksonville are looking. If they're going to go with Gardner Minshew this year, which I'm assuming they are, unless anybody's heard any different, or whether they go and draft someone. But out of that division, I think Indianapolis are probably best set to win it. I don't think they're probably going to go on and win the big one, but who's to say? But I think they're pretty astute moves, to be perfectly honest. The fit was good, I think, for Philip Rivers and Indianapolis Colts.
Do you think, Neil?
I mean, you could argue, if Phil Rivers had protection like this his whole career, he'd have a few less kids.
Well, yeah, probably. You take that joke, so I'll ask you the other one, Neil. As Phil Rivers has completed every single different way to lose as a San Diego / Los Angeles Charger, is he now defining new ways to lose in Indianapolis?
Well,
how many times will I see him with the ball in the final 2 minutes of a game, down 5, and think how is he not going to win this game?
It's still that tweet that Patrick Doherty tweeted out in a Roto Pat last year. Why is every Chargers game the same? And Keenan Allen responded with, "Shit, bro." It's as I say, if the offensive line, obviously, this is the best offensive line he's ever played behind, because the Chargers literally ignore it like I ignore salad. They acknowledge that they should probably do something about it, but they can't be bothered right now. We talked about the Carolina Panthers before. They could do with just upgrading some of the weapons around them. But we do know that in the past, Phil Rivers has loved dumping it off to receiving backs. So they've got Nyheim Hines, who's an excellent receiver at the backfield. Marlon Mack is a good receiving back. They just don't use him. Maybe they can use him that way. The defense is not terrible, and also now they seem to have playmakers on all 3 levels. They've got DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, Malik Hooker. So now they've got the spine. They can go from there. And it's as you say, I mean, we'll find some way for the Texans to go 9-7 because they do every year. Can the Titans are trying to catch it, lightning in a bottle twice with Ryan Tannehill. Well, very good. Best luck with that. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are, they're in the tank. Let's be honest. So it's the whole AFC. The AFC landscape is now completely different. It's now a case of, why not the Bengals in the Super Bowl? No, obviously that's stupid, but you know what I mean? It's not a case of we're just all fighting to lose to New England in the AFC Championship. It's open. So if you make moves...
The fact
I don't know how open it is when you look at
Patrick Mahomes is on the phone, Neil. He wants to speak to you. Do you know what I mean? I think he just won a Super Bowl. Don't know if you know.
Yeah. Do it again, then I'll be impressed. But, it's as you say, they've got Rivers, they've got the offence. It's by bringing in Phil Rivers, it's a solid indicator of, no, we're winning now. But they were quite happy with Jacoby Brissett. And Brissett and the Colts were doing really well last year. Then he got injured. And obviously, George, big, fan of the fantasy as you are. From a fantasy point of view, his numbers dropped off precipitously after he came back from his injury because he stopped running. Now, obviously, they're not going to expect Phil Rivers to be running, but as you say, Frank Reich has been part of coaching staffs that have catered to a number of different quarterbacks and played to their strengths. It's an odd philosophy, but it can actually work. And he's not going to ask Phil Rivers to do things that Phil Rivers can't do. So
I just throw one in. Just throw one in as well. I know I'm going back a division. I'm very interested, and this is the first time I've ever said this sentence, probably in around about 20 years or so. But my good friends, the Miami Dolphins, have made some really interesting moves this off-season. Byron Jones coming in, calling back. They've signed Kyle Van Noy, haven't they, as well? The Eric Flowers one was an interesting one. Anyway, moving on. So I along with what they've got drafting-wise and the way that everybody thought last year that they were going to properly tank, finish 0-16 and get the quarterback of their dreams, well, I still think they're going to get a pretty top-level quarterback in the draft. But I think I've made some pretty astute signings. And the way they were coached last year, I think they're going to be really interesting to watch. You take, as you mentioned, Maines, you take Brady out of that division, and the division then, you would argue that the way that they coach New England will still be in and around the mix. They'll find a way to win. Obviously not as readily as when they had Brady under center. Buffalo Bills, who, were playoff last year. New York Jets, whatever. But the Miami Dolphins, I'm not saying that they're going to turn it around and go have a 10-win season, but I just think they'll be worth watching to see what Brian Flores can start to build there with the addition of some pretty useful talent.
Well, Charles, we've stolen an hour of your night. We appreciate it as
what
always.
What else am I doing? Literally, what else am I doing? Let's do another hour tomorrow night. I can only do so much of my garden, play so much of my bass guitar. Otherwise, I'm glued to Free Agent Frenzy on NFL Network and killing time. So, although very soon I'll become a school teacher with the schools closing on Friday. Yes. So. My daughter will be absolutely delighted with all the maths lessons.
Absolutely. I know my two boys here will be too.
With the free agency frenzy, the one thing I quite like Andrew Siciliano, but when it turns to Rich Eisen for the next 3 hours, if there's ever any bad news, Mange, you'll have to arrange this. If there's ever any bad news that people need to relate to me, just get Rich to tell it me.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
It's get Rich to tell me it and get Dermot O'Leary to hug me. Then I think we'll be okay. They're the two best. It'll all be okay. People.
Well, look, it's been fun. It's always fun talking to you boys. It's been a bit bizarre for the first time. People listening won't know this, but I've been able to see you both as well due to this amazing video conferencing. So Maines, turn some lights on, and Dutz, clean that bit over your right shoulder. Otherwise, as ever, an absolute pleasure to talk to you boys, and whenever you need to gas, I'm here.
Okay, cheers, Charles. We'll speak to you later. Well, Neil, we set him off, we let him go, and an hour later, he finished. Mr. Charles Dagnall talking all things free agency there.
I say, it is a joy to hear someone so happy and, take several veiled shots at our teams. But we'll let them have it because
our teams are doing Jack Shizzle in free agency.
Yeah, our team went into isolation and neglected to put their out of office on or forward their phones. But I digress. No, it's as simple. Some interesting points were raised, not just about the Buccaneers, obviously about other teams as well. And it's always good to get someone else's perspective rather than me and you sitting here absolutely ripping the back out of Bill O'Brien. The new feud, by the way.
Yeah, the new food, indeed, indeed. Neil, it's late. We've done over an hour, so let's let everyone go. Is there anything you want people to be reading over the next week or so?
If you go back on Number Fire, I wrote a piece about potential teams to draft Tua Tagovailoa. I've said that wrong. I think it's Tunga Viola,
Yeah,
so
Tonga,
I
yeah.
apologise to him. I've written a couple of pieces on Roto Underworld, so playerprofile.com, about a couple of draft prospects, Adam Troutman and Hunter Bryant. There's two H. Bryants in the tight end class this year, to reckon my head. I will have another one, at least another one done this week, about Stephen Sullivan, who's a tight end from LSU. Yes, I'm being isolated, so I'm going to have some writing to do. Just do that, read them, follow me on Twitter at EndUpton13.
I am at Mindy7. Combined with at waxing_lyrical. Free agency is saving us from no sport, so long may it continue. Until we're back again, these top guys are out.